listening to Shut Up and Invest.
What's up? Welcome to another episode of Shut Up and Invest. I got the co-pilot in the house. J Money, how you doing, my friend?
I'm doing good, man. Doing good. We got some interesting stuff to talk about today.
We do,
right?
like your gear. What's up, bro? You looking fancy today. We switched positions.
I know. I'm usually a guy like that, like Kevin, and he's usually suited up. But I came here straight from a meeting and I had to get a little bit more dressed up. You inspired me the other day. You know? Yeah. You
were like, you know what? I need to put the cape on. What kind of a meeting? Was it a money meeting?
It was. Yeah, it was somebody, an investor for the ALF stuff. So.
Oh yeah, you're going hard. I challenged them.
He challenged me. Yeah.
6 months to be able to put an ALF together. So you already had a money meeting 24 hours later.
Yeah, I already have one, man.
So we got the money secured yet?
We don't know yet. I mean, he's interested, so we'll see. I might need our guest today to help me finalize all the paperwork for that transaction.
We got Miss Estevez in the house as the guest, as the special guest. Why don't you introduce yourself, tell people your market and what you do?
Awesome. Well, Christy Estevez Puentes. I'm a real estate attorney. Happy to be here. Thank you guys for having me. Mm-hmm. I know we've talked about this for a while, so finally our schedule's coordinated. Mm-hmm. Like I said, I'm a real estate attorney and title agent. So the majority of what I do are helping buyers and sellers when they're looking to buy or sell a home. So as you guys know, in a real estate transaction, you need me to make sure title is clear, run searches, get all the documents together, and make sure everything is properly done so that the buyers can get a property with clean title and the sellers can walk away with their funds. So that's the majority of the title portion of it. We do residential and commercial. And then we also take care of real estate related matters like estate planning and probate, which often have property issues attached to them. Yes. I also take care of city and county lien issues by mitigating those liens. Mm-hmm. We work with everyone from first-time home buyers to seasoned investors. We do wholesale assignments of contracts, double closings, any kind of creative. As Kevin is aware, creative lending, we find a way. That's always the goal.
Yeah, she's really good.
Hey, very important stuff.
Break down what probate is for people that are listening and may not know what that term is.
So probate happens when somebody passes away and they have assets that need to be distributed. Everyone, doesn't matter if you have just a car and a bank account, everyone should have basic estate planning documents. A will, a living will, a healthcare surrogate, a power of attorney, to name the main ones. Mm-hmm. The more complicated your estate is, the more you might need, like a trust or other estate planning tools. But there are ways. Probate can be costly, right? It's a court procedure. Even if you have a will, you still have to go through probate because the probate is the judge validating the will, saying, yeah, Kevin is getting this house per the will. Jory is getting the furniture, whatever the case may be.
Right.
So a will does not negate the fact that you still need to go through probate, but there are tools that you can do during your life to ensure your family doesn't have to go through probate.
Got it.
So I like to discuss those with my clients. It saves them a lot of money because probate is expensive.
Mm-hmm. Well, a range. I know everything is different.
A range depends on the value of the estate, but for an estate less than $1 million, the statutory rate is 3%. So if you just consider, I like to just kind of put it in layman's terms for people. If you have one property that's worth $200,000, which is almost non-existent these days, 3% is going to be $6,000, as opposed to certain tools that we can use that are going to be substantially less. When someone passes away, your family should be able to grieve and not have to worry about all of these things that come up. So with proper planning, you can allow your families to grieve. They don't have to come out of pocket, front money. You know, if you pass away and you have a house that has a mortgage, has an association, even while it's in probate, somebody's got to pay it. Mm-hmm. You know, you might not be able to touch the money that was left over from the estate.
Right. Let me ask you a question. I mean, this is big. I know that's the reason why we wanted you to come on the show, because when people are investing in real estate,
definitely,
the biggest fear factor is the legal side of things. Am I getting into something that later on is going to be a headache? And then what do I do once I'm in it to make sure that my family's protected and all? And like you just said, if something happens to me, what are they going to go through? It can be costly. We just pointed that out. But time-wise, I've been through probates that sometimes take 2 years. What exactly does that mean? Does that mean while it's in probate, if my grandmother left me her property, her car, and her bank account, we're focused on the properties here on this show, but at the end of the day, I got all that. I can't turn around and sell that 2 days later, even if she left a will that was prepared by an attorney?
Correct. Only in certain limited circumstances might you be able to sell while the property is still in probate. And that's mostly if it's already under contract and it's a homestead property. Because homestead property, meaning the property that somebody was residing in, offers more legal protection from creditor claims and things like that. But if you can eliminate that problem altogether for your family at a very, reasonable, it's straightforward. I don't want to say it's easy because it could be done incorrectly very easily. But if you have somebody like myself who knows what they're doing, I do it all the time. It's a great way to save your family that extra headache.
So in that case, in that scenario, just so that the people listening clearly understand, my grandmother left me that house. She lived in it, but I did not. It's not my homestead. It was hers. I don't really have the money to pay for the association and the mortgage. So I want to quickly sell this thing because there's maybe $120,000 worth of equity. What happens? Like, let's break it down in English. I cannot put that with my realtor under contract just yet.
No, you can't.
Right.
Although by law, by operation of law, you're the owner, but you're not the owner on title.
We're saying there's a will. There's a will in place.
Yeah, she got an attorney. My grandmother got an attorney, got a will. So I'm showing up with a will saying, hey, I should be able to post this tomorrow because that's between association. She lived in Century Village, so association there. 55-year-old community.
3 that you have to deal with.
It's
there.
like $400, $500 a month, and I can't afford that right now. And there's $120,000 in equity there. So thank you, Grandma. Let me tap into that because I need a vacation. But you're telling me I gotta wait. Well, not you, but the government.
Well, the state.
The state.
Generally speaking, yeah, you're gonna have to wait. Because of several reasons. Now, one thing also that happens, like you're saying, you can't afford those association dues in that case.
So what happens?
So the association can come and while it's in probate, start foreclosure, which I do also handle and defend. Because that is their right. They're not getting paid. They want the property back. So now you're almost in a race. What's going to happen first? The probate or the foreclosure? When I do them and I bring it all in-house, it's a little bit easier for me because I know how to buy time on the foreclosure in order to complete the probate. And if grandma only had a house, a probate doesn't have to be 2 years like you said, so we don't want to scare off people. There are ways to do it and streamline it as much as possible.
How fast do you see a streamlined one usually?
I've done a probate that is only one property. I've done it in 30, 40 days.
Okay.
In Miami-Dade County, which...
Right, depends where you are.
Well, in Miami-Dade is an interesting county.
It might be more difficult, right? Miami-Dade?
Yeah, so Broward and Palm Beach can usually be a little bit easier, actually. Palm Beach is great, but...
Let me ask the question, too, because, I deal a lot of time dealing with, probate properties. I'm dealing with the siblings who were like fighting with each other because the parents died, right? They're not even grieving the parents that are fighting over a house, right? And like, it's horrible to see. And I have 5 kids. So what can I do to prevent that from happening when me and my wife pass, that they don't have to, they even have a will at times and there's still a fight going on, right? So what's the answer of what we can do to make that more clear so there's not this issue of fighting over who has the right to what? Right.
So one tool that I really like and I use a lot with my clients who have never heard of it for the most part is called a ladybird deed or an enhanced life estate deed.
Ladybird.
Yes.
Okay.
Not sure why it's called Ladybird deed, but that's what it is.
I've never heard of this.
Most people haven't. And Florida is one of the few states that actually uses this tool.
Okay.
And it's a great way to completely remove the property, the house, from the equation in a probate. Because remember, probate can involve more than just a house. It could be bank accounts, cars. So I'm not talking about that. But the biggest thing that people usually have, their asset that they want to protect more than anything, is their home. Most of us don't have portfolios of properties and other things. So they just I want my kids to get my house. So that is what we aim to protect by using this tool.
Okay. You said Ladybird deed, or what's called an enhanced
Life estate deed.
Okay, so I come to your office, I get all these kids, right? When I leave here,
Jory's got 5 kids.
I do have a lot of kids, yeah. When I leave, I don't want them fighting
Like
each other.
this. That's what Jory's Friday night looks like. Just for ice cream.
Every day, every night. What is your advice for me and my wife, of how we can set this up? Now, you're just talking about your homestead right now, or this can go on?
No, it could be for any property that you own.
Okay, so what's the advice? What's the steps of what we take to protect this so that my daughter is not fighting with my other daughter? Because they fight enough right now. I know they're gonna fight when I'm gone.
So we're gonna pretend all your kids right now are not minors.
No, they're like,
sake of receiving property.
Yes, let's make it easier.
So what it does, it looks like a quitclaim deed, right? And just to kind of give some perspective, that's how people come to me. They don't know what they need. They think they want a quitclaim deed, and I want to add my kid to my quitclaim deed so that they're also owner of the property. And when I die, it's their property. And I tell them, no, you're not going to do that. And I explain this, but that's usually their intention when they come.
While you're answering Jory's question, why would a quitclaim deed which is what everybody usually wants to do, why adding your kids to the title now is not necessarily the way to go versus this Ladybird option?
Yeah, I'll explain that while I explain the Ladybird deed.
Okay.
So, like I said, it looks like a quitclaim deed, right? But it has specific language in it that's different. It basically allows the property owner to retain the property for their life, to do whatever they want with it. And the title, the transfer of the property, does not occur until the property owner has passed away. But it's effective immediately upon their death. So you don't have to go through probate. You should have it in a will just to make mention of it and make sure it's consistent. But it's almost irrelevant because you've already taken care of that. It's recorded in the public record.
That's my question.
So
it is recorded.
It is recorded.
Okay.
So there's several reasons why I encourage this as opposed to a regular quitclaim deed. Number one, when most people come to me, it's regarding their homestead property, the property that they are living in. If you add somebody on title to your homestead property who doesn't live with you, what happens? You lose your homestead exemption or it gets cut in half. Just to, expand on that a little bit, Miami-Dade and Broward County, they're strict. We have so many snowbirds. So they are always looking to see who is committing homestead fraud. And if you add someone on title who does not live with you, whether you realize it or not, you are committing homestead fraud if you have not lowered your homestead exemption to now half of what you would normally get because you're only half owner. So that's one big reason.
So there's not a lot of fraud in Miami.
Why would there ever be fraud down here?
And when you come to me with a homestead
we're honest
fraud,
to Hialeah.
Especially not in real estate. There's no real estate
no,
fraud.
Hialeah is everyone's on the up and up.
Yeah.
There's no efficiencies or any renting out of properties. No, nothing like that.
We are standard citizens.
So that's one reason that immediately I say you're going to mess up your homestead exemption, period. And it's fraud whether you realize it or not. Another reason is a lot of times these people have a mortgage.
Yeah.
And if you change title, if you convey a property, whether you're just adding somebody to it, it's not like I'm giving my property to you. Even if I'm just adding you, technically the lender can call up the mortgage and say, you transfer the property. Now you owe us all the money. That's not typically what happens, but it is a risk that is real. And I'm going to tell you about it.
Yeah, it's one of those things that never happens, but it can happen.
And the one time that somebody is unaware of it is the one time it's
when
gonna
it happens.
happen.
Yeah. Who's a lot of winner?
Yeah.
Who's a lot of winner?
Plus, if you add somebody to your deed as a quick claim deed, and then now I want to sell it. Well, now if I added you, Kevin, you got to sign everything. You have to agree to everything. It's yours. Also, you're entitled to half of my net proceeds. I don't want you to get my money. You can get it when I die. Not today. Plus, what if we get into a fight and I want to sell it and you say, no, I'm not going to sign? Then what? I'm stuck because you're literally half owner of the property.
Right. Even if we're brother, sister, even if we're mother, daughter, that happens all the time.
Well, I see the siblings fight all the time. I mean, their parents are dead. You know, one wants to sell it, another doesn't want to sell it. I literally sold a deal a few months ago where I had to talk to each sibling separately. Like I would call the one, and the one would complain about the other one's husband, and I would call the other one, and it was like literally I had to pretty much put them together. I felt bad. Like it was like these siblings hate each other. Their parents just died. They're not grieving. All they're worried about is fighting about the house, you know, and that's the whole scenario going on.
Right. And it's sad.
It's very sad.
But when you're dealing with money, especially when somebody has died, that's a lot of times you see the worst in people.
Yeah.
So this Ladybird deed is recorded at the time it's created.
Correct.
That doesn't put all of Jory's 10 kids on title.
So they're there as what's called remaindermen.
So they might start claiming some.
I don't get no some funds. There's no 5 in the possible over here. This
so
is 5.
What it basically, in layman's terms, what it states is, this is my property. I get to do whatever I want with it for my life. I can sell it. I can refinance it. I can whatever I want to do. But when I die, if it still exists, if there's anything left, then it goes to all of my children and equal shares. However you want to do it.
When anybody passes away, it doesn't need to get re-recorded.
No, the only thing that we record when the person passes away is their death certificate and typically another affidavit that would be required, but that's it.
That's
right.
it.
Now, give me an idea of, since we broke down a range of how much probate cost, what does something like this cost so that we can measure?
I charge a flat fee for this. I charge $500 plus recording fees. Done.
Wow. No matter the price of the home, right?
It doesn't matter. It's irrelevant.
Per property.
Per property.
Right. If they have a lot of properties, you work.
If it's a lot of properties, we'll talk about it. But generally speaking, most people have one home. I tell them, if you want to go through probate, and I always use just $200,000 as an example. If your property's worth $200,000, you or your family is going to pay me $6,000 in attorney's fees.
Now, what's the difference between like that Ladybird deed and putting all your homes in a trust and then giving the trust direction of what happens after you die?
So a trust is also a really good tool, but most people don't need a trust because they don't have enough to have a trust.
Okay.
A trust, when you create it, it is going to be more expensive, and it's going to depend on the complexity of the estate, what you have, what you're planning to do with all of your assets. So it is a great tool. I'm not saying don't do a trust. It's really on an individual basis, evaluating what assets the person has and then making a decision from there. Because if you come to me and you have one property, and people do, and they say, I want to do a trust, you really don't. Not always. That's not always going to make sense. So if you're going to spend thousands to create a trust for one property, when this does essentially the same thing for that property, but for substantially less, and it offers the same, you keep your homestead exemption. If you have senior citizen exemptions, it doesn't call up the loan. It keeps all of the same benefits. It still protects you. Remember, homestead also protects you from creditors. So now a creditor can attach, a piece of your property if you're sharing that with somebody.
If you go into trust, you lose homestead.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm just
I'm asking as a question.
Not necessarily. Now, again, a trust usually encompasses a lot of assets. So there's different ways to protect properties or whatever the assets may be.
Got it. So basically, a trust is for, if I have 15 properties, let's say, right? Would you advise me to have a trust or to put a Ladybird deed on each of the 15 properties? If
you have 15 properties and you own them all in your individual name, you and I are going to have a problem.
So that's a good question. So this is for your individual name and not for a company name. The Ladybird.
Right, because a company
has different.
A company doesn't die.
Got it. Got it.
Now, if you do own a property in a company name, right? Let's say you and Kevin own an LLC together. There are certain triggers, there's certain clauses that we can include in your operating agreements that will designate what happens when somebody dies as owner of the company. So the company could involve more than one property. You know, it could be a company could do a lot of things. So that's another way
Got it. Okay, that's a good clarification
to
too.
plan for death in the event of an LLC. But you're not going to do a ladybird deed company to, you know, whoever, your kid, because technically the entity doesn't die.
Yeah. An operating agreement would kind of lay out what happens
Exactly.
after that.
Me and Jory make an investment together under a corporate identity. God forbid something happens to us. In our operating agreement, the best advice we haven't talked about this, so let's talk about this live right now.
Oh,
'Cause
awkward. I hope not.
No, it's not awkward. No,
We
no,
need
no.
the council.
No, we're gonna.
Well, I have to say I've not been retained yet, so I can't give you specifics.
Hypothetically,
Yes.
case study.
Definitely.
Okay, so what are some of the challenges? If one of us passes away, what happens to the other person's percentage of the property, essentially, because really the corporation is just for the property.
Right. It depends. And that's always the standard lawyer answer. But it does depend on what you guys want to do. As long as your intentions, whatever they are legal, right? We can account for them within the operating agreement for the most part. So sometimes people say, well, when I die, if you're married, right? When I die, I want my wife to get my shares or my husband. Or you have the opportunity to buy out his heirs if Jory dies, or could automatically just go to the other person. I mean, there's different ways, but it really is more of a personal decision.
Which needs to be put into the operating agreement from the beginning.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
Because someone like me with 5 kids and a wife, and then there's Kevin who's single with nothing, with just himself.
The cat.
There's
Not
different
even a
things.
cat.
Like if I go, I have way more stuff that needs to be taken care of right now than
I would add
Right.
a dirty joke, but we're not going to take that on the show. So we got a different show for that one.
That's the After
That's
Dark
the
show. The
midnight
After
show,
Dark
yeah.
show we're bringing on. It's coming. It's coming.
Now, let's say I obviously want his percentage to go to his family. However, truth be told, I don't want to have to deal with all the family members. In fact, I don't even want to. What if I want to sell? We know what's best for the property, but now you get someone, my wife or his wife, who doesn't even really know real estate and say, no, I don't want to sell. All that gets outlined prior to in the operating agreement.
Ideally, right. And if, although you could be married to somebody today and divorce and marry somebody else next year, and you might want to change things. But ideally,
Can I just put wife on the operating agreement so that it's not a specific person?
it's not really a specific, it's your heirs, right? So whoever they may be.
I can put
Wifey.
Can I put wifey?
So
I'm retaining you like tomorrow. You got complications.
right. So you know who you marry, right? And
Me
you're,
as a partner,
I hope
think
so, right? And I'm looking at Jory because
I
he's the
know,
one that's
I know.
married.
Yes, I know.
So you know who you married. You know how invested or involved they are or would want to be in your business now and if you pass away. So I encourage people also to talk to each other. I feel like people don't do that enough. Talk to each other. Talk to your wife. Plan, what if this happens? What would you want to do? What would you feel comfortable doing? So that it's not a surprise. So that way, if Jory knows his wife has a full-time corporate job, is only going to need money to feed the kids and keep the mortgage paid and all that stuff if he passes away, then maybe there's a buyout clause instead. And that would make more sense. You become 100% owner, but you've paid his wife her share in the business.
So me and the wife.
Gonna have to have a conversation.
Gonna have another episode.
We'll put it live.
Talk
Look,
it out.
I'm thinking all the crazy parts, right? So let's say there's a buyout clause, correct? But there also has to be, I guess, written in there where we have to sell at standard appraised value to
So
make
it can
sure
be
that there's no
fire sale.
a fire sale, or I'm selling to my cousin at a discount price.
Right.
And hey, don't worry, you don't know real estate. I got this. And then next thing you know, I really sold it at a cheap price just to hand over
and then
$5,000.
Jory's ghost comes back to Kevin's house.
That sounds fair to me.
I can write that in the operating agreement.
You're gonna want his wife should have her own independent counsel at that point too, right? Looking out for her best interests.
Yeah, this gets a little tricky. We're gonna make sure we'll be fine. We'll be fine. Jackie's cool.
No, let's talk about that. Let's talk about it. So
But
that at that
tricky,
point, you say, "Hey, each person get their own representation."
That would be in their best interest because you're trying to sell it to your cousin at a discount. So Jory's wife,
his cousin, Kevin's cousins always come up.
I got a lot of primos.
Yeah, man. His uncle does the lawn for the property management company, booking the books. His cousin's trying to buy it. You know, the straw buyer in Miami.
I got primos for primos.
It's always a good idea to have somebody in your corner.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good. Yeah. So each person gets their legal representation to make sure that an appraised value, it's being sold at what it should be sold. And then the person can either buy the other person out or they can decide to keep it.
Yeah, whatever
going
you decided to do.
if it's cash flowing.
Yeah, it's hard to say now, what would we do? What if?
Yeah.
Because we haven't
you got to outline it though, because if you don't outline it,
I'm thinking about the cons because we can get along great, but then if we get on a plane together and don't come back because the plane goes down, and then you leave women trying to deal with it.
Hey.
No women. Well, I mean, I may end up marrying a man. Who knows? So let's be politically correct. Woman or man, I guess.
But just to be clear, women can handle business too.
I didn't say they can't.
We're not saying that at all.
I didn't say they can't. I am pro female-preneurs. But
it just can get tricky. It can definitely get tricky.
If we leave our women, let me clarify, our women handling it, and they've never done business together, now it becomes a whole different ball game for them.
Just like if it was your husband and, when Kevin was his wife's husband and you two had disappeared. I mean, husbands might be a little bit difficult to deal with too. It's just spouses in general that aren't actually actively involved.
If you've never worked together, I mean, there's a lot of different ways. Again, I mean, it's really intent of the parties matters. What you want to have happen for your estate planning, for your children, for your business. A lot of that can be in writing. And it can be changed if it needs to be.
Getting in business with good people. I know for a fact that we will outline all that, but I have faith in my brother over there that he makes sure we're all taken care of.
But you
got to be in business with good people. And you do got to outline it.
You got to put in like, Jackie, don't get crazy. But don't worry, but Jackie, don't get crazy.
But also, you can have the greatest relationship in the world. Forget about dying. But when it comes to money and business, it should always be written down. I don't care. People say, well, it's my son, it's my brother, it's my this. I love my parents. I love my brother. I love my husband, my sister-in-law. But if anyone in that equation is going to do business together, why not have it written down?
It makes it easier.
So there's no issue.
Yeah. Okay.
You can change things. So if I go into business with Kevin and our intent going in is A, but we decide together that B makes more sense for us in that moment, then that's fine. There's no one's saying that you can't. What we are saying is you memorialize it in writing. And if there is ever a conflict or a discrepancy, you have the writing to fall back on, and that is your default.
Yeah. There's too many people out there investing together in partnerships, and they have zero operating agreement.
They have zero. They have none.
They just open up a corporation, start buying property. I rarely
have somebody that, because I have a lot of sellers who are corporations or LLCs who sell a property. And not to say it's gone sour or anything like that, but they should have an operating agreement and they don't,
Someone looking to get an operating agreement, right? Because they're hearing this podcast right now. And that can entail a lot of hours, right? Depending on how, something that we just talked about could entail a lot of time on your part, So what's the process of coming to, hey, we just started a company, me and Kevin formed KJ LLC, we need an operating agreement. What's the next step?
So your first consult is free.
Okay, thank you. We appreciate that.
For anybody. So we do offer free consultations. And it's going to be a strategy, planning. You're right. It could take a lot of time. I always like to say I'm fair to you and fair to me. Mm-hmm. So before we even do anything, we're going to have not an operating agreement, but a retainer agreement, which is our contract with each other outlining what our responsibilities are to each other, which is going to reflect payment, what it is that we're doing, all of that. So it depends on everyone's needs. And sometimes it's a very simple, straightforward thing because people don't want all the bells and whistles, and that is their right. We'll advise as far as what we think, but ultimately it will be your choice as a customer, unless you're doing something outrageous, and then I'm just going to tell you, find somebody else. I'm good.
Not the one.
Back in Hialeah again.
Yeah.
I got a cousin for that.
We got somebody for that stuff.
But we'll outline everything together, plan it, and then we'll move forward in a way that makes sense for all of us.
We talked about the Lady Bird deed, and we talked about Jay's kids. They're minors. In a situation where kids are minors, what's the twist?
Well, in general, in your estate planning documents, if you have minor children, you should designate who you wish, pre-need guardian, someone who would be the one to raise your kids. That's your wish. That is you not being able to speak for yourself because you've passed away, letting the world know, a judge know, hey, I want my sister or whoever to raise my children, so that the judge can see that those are your intentions and validate it. I don't ever recommend putting a minor as a beneficiary on a deed because that's just, there's a whole host of things that can go wrong.
I'm just thinking about my kids. Yeah, I don't want, no. There's only one I might put on a deed. The rest of them, no way.
Do you want to name names? Which one?
They already know. When they listen to this, they'll know.
But the good thing about a ladybird deed is that you can change it several times. As long as you're alive, if you want to change it, you can. You can have Kevin today and, your cousin tomorrow. So, yeah, we'd have to do it over again, recording fees, attorney's fees, but you can change it however often you would like.
So in a situation where you have kids that are minor, and let's say that I want my cousin to raise them, I'm doing a ladybird deed to my cousin, but does that also have an agreement that it's for my children?
So if that was going to be the case,
and I only had one property or two properties, let's say.
it does get a little bit more complicated though because of minor children. You can say, I want my cousin to raise him and I'm going to name my cousin on title, but then your cousin up and leaves and sells your house and, leaves your kids
stranded.
Right. So I would not advise that. But in that case, a trust might be a better tool, even though it's more expensive, more complicated, but a better tool to ensure that your children are protected.
Right. So that's where a trust comes in versus a ladybird deed. But if you have older children,
if your kids are over the age of 18, they're adults, so they can be named directly.
They're adults? Man.
Yeah, I know. So I wanted to clarify 18 instead of adults.
Man.
I know. Which no 18-year-olds, I don't think, should be able to sell and have all that money for a property, but that it
technically.
Is. Yeah.
I got a question about, because we've used the word trust a lot. A lot of people they don't know what a trust actually is. Can you kind of break down what a trust is? I know there's very different, but what it is basically and what it can do for you.
So I like to think of it also as an entity, almost like as if it was a company, but it's not. But it's almost it's an entity that allows a lot of different things to happen with certain triggers, right? You can have yourself as a beneficiary during your life, but then that way you have control of all of your assets. But then it'll say once you pass away, Kevin is your beneficiary or whoever. You can also name things like, let's say you have a trust fund for your children, but you don't want your kids to have all this money when they're 18 years old because that's probably a bad idea. You can have triggers in there. They get X amount when they're 25, X amount when they're 30.
Can you do like X amount when they get married? Can you put stuff like that? Like, can you get that detailed in there? Like married, they have their first kid, or is it just basically by age?
I mean, it depends. You don't want to get too.
Can I put when the Steelers win like Super Bowl? My son gets this.
You don't want to get too crazy with certain things because you can't put like if your kid is dating somebody that you don't like right now, or they date somebody outside of your religion, you can't necessarily cut them out because of they marry that person or they decide to go outside of their religion. So I don't want to get into all of those nitty gritties because it could be really hairy. But you can set certain milestones.
As far as like protection, let's say that not just like after death, but like as far as from lawsuits and creditors. I own 20 properties, right? And I want those on the trust to protect me from, liability. How does that work? And like what's your like preferred client that says this guy or this girl needs a trust? What do they look like?
Somebody who has children is always good to have a trust and has a lot of assets. There's definitely creditor protections involved. And there's also creditor protection that's, again, going back to the company really quick and thinking of you as an investor.
Mm-hmm. The LLC or
so it's limited liability company. It's limiting your liability. All of these things are tools to shield you.
Mm-hmm.
Everything, and I explain this with my clients with estate planning documents as well, even the most basic ones. They're all buffers. They're all shields. Because you can have the documents in place. But for example, you have a bank account. You might want to put somebody as a POD, payable upon death, on your bank account. Yeah, it's named in the will, but they still have to wait for a judge to sign an order allowing that person to retrieve those funds. Whereas if you have a POD, they can access the funds when you're dead.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully they don't kill you for it.
ATM,
for all your millions.
I don't keep nothing in the bank. I'm broke.
Or to get under your mattress, whatever.
No cash. They're going to have to go. Yeah, they're not getting out of my bank account. My kids took all that.
Man, I feel like we could do like 7 shows over this.
I do. I definitely do. Because there's just the trust and stuff. I know you can get very deep on that stuff. So
basically on the Ladybird side, I feel it's kind of if you have 1 or 2 properties, your kids are older, you don't have a bunch of other things, and you kind of want to just make it easy and save on the probate, that kind of seems like a perfect scenario.
Right. And you've come to me with the intent of doing a quitclaim deed and or just your basic estate planning documents because you want to get your your financial and your estate planning house in order.
Mm-hmm.
I'll always suggest it because, again, nobody knows about it when they just walk in. So I like to educate about it and then they can make that decision, but generally speaking, that's what they want to do.
And you said like Florida is one of the few states that actually does a Ladybird deed. So I have homes in Pennsylvania. Let's say I have a home in Pennsylvania, one house, right? It's a vacation house. You might not know, but what is a good option if that's not there?
You would have to speak with a Pennsylvania licensed attorney.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I can't say.
Yeah.
Every state is going to be different.
Yeah, but you could, if you're listening to the show, you're in another state, which we have a lot of people that are in other states listening. Take this option to them and they'll have an alternative.
And ask them, hey, do you have something like this that I can use in my state?
Right. And if it's something that's other than your homestead property, maybe creating an LLC would be the right thing for them if a trust isn't the right vehicle. They're tools. All of these things are tools to protect your assets, minimize your liability, minimize your tax implications as well, protect your family. So there's different tools that should be used in different situations.
Here in Florida, if we buy a property under the company name, does every owner of the company need to sign off when it's time to sell or do anything with the property? Or the company representative can handle everything?
Well, it depends. Did you do an operating agreement?
No.
If you don't have an operating agreement, then I will require at the very least an affidavit signed by everyone and the equivalent of an LLC power of attorney to allow the representative to sign.
That's covering everybody's butt to make sure that
right,
no
including my own. Yeah, because I don't want
Kevin sign on
property.
I didn't know Kevin bought that house. I come to you like, hey, Kevin can't sign on the house without me. So got it.
Right, and of course, notarized documents, making sure everyone.
But the key is to have an operating agreement that outlines what we say can happen as far as when we purchase a house.
Right, because an operating agreement, as you guys know, involves a lot more than just what's going to happen when you die. It's also who's gonna. Again, I know we're talking about property, but a company it could function as a regular company, day-to-day operations. Who's allowed to make those decisions? If there's a big decision to be made, does it need to be a unanimous vote? Does it need to be a majority? Does one person have all the power? How are the shares, if there's shares divided up, and who gets to sign if you're going to sell or convey any of the assets.
Awesome.
Smart Money Life segment.
You ready?
You ready for
I don't know. Am I ready?
I don't know.
Here comes a surprise. You see her face? She was like,
we got a couple questions for you. Very basic, nothing crazy, but we didn't want to prep you. We wanted to just.
I know you were very adamant about not prepping.
Yeah, no, we like it raw. We like it organic. We don't like no rehearsals. All right, if you can go back and start broke again, by the way, go back in time, day one, what would you do?
Differently?
Yeah. Well, just not necessarily differently, but let's say we'll take you back
to
10 years.
And Kendall again.
And Kendall in the backwoods.
Get your go-kart stolen.
And broke from day one, knowing, everything that you know now. What would you do?
What would I do? The first thing, honestly, that comes to mind, and I don't know if anyone that listens to this would benefit from this, because it doesn't really have to do with real estate.
We have a very wide range of listeners. Don't worry, we're eclectic, so we'll take it on.
10 years ago, I would have gone to a cheaper law school.
Really?
Wow.
That's definitely relevant to this show.
Yeah, student loans are real.
The game.
They are. I'm happy with where I am in my life. I've had my own practice for 6 years. I do well. I'm experienced in real estate. My husband and I do invest as well. But student loans are still very real in our life for me. Mm-hmm. I would
go. Another mortgage.
It is.
Let me ask that
mortgage.
because the actual degree, the school doesn't matter as much as you thought it did.
So it depends on what somebody wants to do with your law degree. I always knew from day one that eventually I wanted to work for myself. So do I care where my law degree comes from? Not really. I mean, people come and they see, where I went to school. Oh, you're Kane, the U, which I had a great education, a great experience. But
in the big picture, you could have been having.
I don't think it would have made a difference for me personally. And I also probably would have tried to start investing earlier and also saving for retirement. Mm-hmm. I think that's something that kids, 18 years old, if I have kids, even though, cash is king and we want to invest and we want to have
cash flows. We say cash flow is king around here.
Yeah. Well, we want to have that passive income, right? Mm-hmm. We want to have rental properties, which is great. But also, you never know what's going to happen. We saw when the market crashed. We saw a lot of people who were smart investors lose a lot. So even though also a retirement account, you could lose a lot that way too. If I have kids, when they turn 18, I want to at least start putting away little by little for them and have them also start that for themselves and just start the practice. It's a practice. Mm-hmm. It's a habit. You need to get into the habit young.
Make sure you're not spending all
I think that's definitely...
Yeah, don't spend all your money.
Definitely good information for everyone out there.
Biggest mistake. That one big mistake. I don't know if this is the same exact one. It might be the same. Is law school, do you feel the cost of law school and picking that law school was the biggest mistake? If you can go back and change something?
Biggest mistake, and it's this baby cliche, but you learn from your mistakes. Yes, and I think that's the most important thing is that you take something away from it and you don't do it again. So I can't really say that I regret my mistakes in the past. I think they're all a learning experience, but I guess if I had to pick one, I would have gone FIU.
That's smart.
Save $100K right off the top or more.
Hey, there's a lot of FIU alumni around here too.
No, and let me tell you, FIU has blown up. No, now when I started, it was their first year.
Okay, wow.
So it was a little different, but man, I don't know if you pay attention, but they have the highest in the state of bar pass rates year over year. It's really impressive.
That's huge. And it's very, very inexpensive too.
It's inexpensive.
Especially if you're in state.
Yeah.
Extremely inexpensive.
I went to FIU.
I want my kids to go to FIU now that I think about it.
I went to FIU.
Hey, and there's nothing wrong with vocations either. Trades.
No, I mean, that's the big, nowadays it is. Like we talk about it a lot. Like a trade is amazing. You know, we ran away from trades for so long. Like our generation was like, you had to go to college. You had to.
Yeah.
And
Especially if you're a kid of immigrant parents.
Or
first-time generation.
Minority parents too. I was taught the same thing. College, you know.
Me too.
And, you know, I tell my kids all the time, you know, I'm not going to force you to go there. If you say, hey, I want to do this, and it's a trade. My oldest son graduated high school. He's a mechanic. You know, he went into that. He did mechanic and Voltech in high school. You know, that was perfect lane for him. You know, so it depends on what you're doing. You can waste a lot. I wasted a lot of money in college. A lot of it.
Jory did 10 years in Penn State. Came out with 20 kids. Currently, right now, today, what's your top investment goal, priority? Where's your head at when it comes to investing?
Well, we just invested in a second home / rental property, so that's
local. I mean,
and actually in Sebring, which surprisingly, I mean, not surprisingly, but it's much lower price area. It's more of a slower market, but a lot of snowbirds, short-term rentals and things like that. So we're looking into that. But my next goal, I work with a lot of wholesale investors. I know it inside and out. I know how to do it correctly, how to do it quickly, because I do it from the title perspective. So I also know all the legalities of it. So that would be my next goal. My obstacle with that is just time. Most of those people, that's what you do for a living.
It is.
Whereas I do run a practice, so it takes some time.
Yeah, welcome to my world. Top tool right now that you're absolutely crazy about? It could be an app, it could be a software, something that you use that creates easiness in your life right now.
Yeah, this one for me is for me easy or easy for others?
No, for
Either one.
Okay. I love right now, it's a company that I use called Digital Closing Package. It's amazing. It's amazing for buyers, sellers, realtors, lenders, and myself. So what it is at closing, as opposed to giving buyer and sellers a stack of paper for all of their closing documents or emailing it, because we have issues, not me personally, but the industry with hackers and people who are able to get other people's private information and use that. We use Digital Closing Package, which gives somebody a tangible tool. It looks like a key, but it's a flash drive. They put that into their USB port. It takes them to a secure cyber portal, and all of their documents are stored there from now until forever.
Wow.
But and everyone loves it because it's green, right? I'm not printing out, I'm not killing more trees. It's more techie. Most people, unless I've had one person who was probably in her 90s that said, no, I don't want it.
Give me the paper.
Give me the paper.
Now, can
but
you put multiple closings on that key?
Yes.
Okay.
What if you lose the key?
It doesn't matter. You can just log into the account.
Oh,
but the key is to just give you something tangible.
Cool.
Yeah.
Plus, it's a flash drive. You can put whatever you want on it. But so it's really cool for my buyers and sellers that way. But it's also really cool for my realtors, lenders, and myself, because what they do is, your number one as a realtor or lender is referrals. That's what you want. But it's hard to be after people after a transaction closes and stay top of mind with them because you need to find new business. Somebody who just bought or sold might not really be in the market to do so for a few years from now. So it fades away. You forget and they forget. But if you were able to stay top of mind, you're a lot more likely to get referrals. So what this product also does is every time they log in, they see my contact information, so they know how to reach me. They have the lender's picture and contact info and the realtor's picture and contact info. So they'll never forget, even if they lose your card. But the other really cool part of it is every year they'll send 7 to 9 content-based emails. So happy anniversary of your buying your new home. Happy holidays. Hey, don't forget about your homestead exemption filing.
Oh, nice.
And other just market industry content emails. And it looks like it comes from all of us, from me as the title agent, the lender, and the realtor. So it's a free way. It's free marketing.
Yeah, post marketing.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. What's it called again?
Digital closing package.
Nice. All right. This is Joey's favorite. What's your disconnect method? Away from business, when you turn it all off.
Do we ever turn it all off?
I was going to say, when I disconnect, Kevin.
A couple of things. My husband and I, we like to travel as much as we can. Mm-hmm. And even if it's not for a long time, because, we do have to come back, we like to pick a city, go for a long weekend, and just explore as much as we can in a new city. But I'm going home and I just need to disconnect. I read a lot.
Yeah?
Yeah, for fun. I'll read business books sometimes too, but...
You read like novels and stuff?
Yeah. Okay. Since I was a little kid, I've probably read thousands of books. I'm in a book club. I know I'm super nerdy. But I love it. And
I love book clubs. I don't read novels though. I've always had a hard time reading like novels, but so that's pretty good.
That's the one way that I can completely shut off everything else around me.
Have you read The Alchemist?
I haven't read The Alchemist.
Oh man.
No.
Have you?
Years ago.
Dude.
The last novel I read was Where the Red Fern Grows.
Oh my goodness. When you were 12?
That tells you. I read a lot. But the last novel I read was...
Listen, try The Alchemist.
Great Expectations, the last one. Alchemist.
Try The Alchemist because it's a great story, but it's definitely like related to growth and perspective. And
I'll check that out.
It's got a great thing.
We should read it together. A new book club. Shut Up and Invest book club.
Yeah. Hey, I'm down. But not Where the Red Fern Grows, though.
No, The Alchemist. No.
She already read that. We read The Alchemist.
You read it before?
A long time ago.
Oh, okay.
I'll reread that one for you.
Author has got a bunch of good ones. I don't know how much you've read his stuff, but he's awesome. He's one of my favorite. Cool city that you just recently explored.
Cool city that I recently explored. The most recent place we went was Philly, which was pretty cool.
I love Philly.
And DC.
Did you do the Rocky thing?
Of course.
Yeah. Do you have a picture?
Yeah, they're somewhere. Yeah, but of course we did the Rocky steps.
We gotta make that the YouTube thumbnail. Rocky steps.
And everyone is there doing those pictures of the Rocky steps.
I'm from Pennsylvania. I've been to Philly a lot.
How'd you like it? It was good?
Yeah, we had a good time. It was fun.
When were you there? Recently?
That was February.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's a really cool city. There's so much history. It's like the oldest city in America. There's so much history there.
I've been there.
In Philadelphia.
What do you think about their cheesesteaks?
Well, I love their cheesesteaks, but being that I don't eat meat anymore, I can't eat them. Okay. But they are the most amazing cheesesteaks.
Yeah,
in the
they
world.
were good.
Like,
true story. Yeah. They were good.
Mm-hmm. Geno's or...
We actually went to Sonny's. Well, we went to Geno's also, but we like Sonny's best.
Yeah. Don't talk about cheesesteaks anymore.
He's giving up.
Pancone beef steaks calling me. I'm about to go get a pancone beef steak.
I think we're good, man. Killer show.
Definitely, I appreciate you coming on. A lot of good information.
We're going to bring you back on because we want to talk more about in-depth different things like the trust and how to use that as an investing and tie those two things together. And we got a lot of stuff we could talk about.
All right, sounds good.
First of many.
I'll be here.
How can somebody reach out and connect with you?
Definitely. So you're welcome to give us a call. The main office number is 754-209-7766. Or you could always email us. The best email is closings with an S at the end at Estevez. And that's ESTEVEZ lawgroup.com. So Estevez like Emilio Estevez.
Emilio.
How about Gloria?
It's starting to be where people don't know who he is anymore. Really? Younger people. So I'm losing.
You get Emilio more than Gloria?
That's Estefan. So yeah.
Oh, what am I thinking about? Yeah.
Come on, man. Get your Miami game on point, bro.
Sorry, man. Sorry,
Get your Miami game on point.
I know. I just got to.
So reach out to us there. We have an office in Hollywood, just off of Hollywood Boulevard. Well, we're on Hollywood Boulevard, just west of I-95. And we also have an office in Doral. So if you're unwilling to cross the county line, then I'll see you in Doral.
But you do all of Florida?
All of Florida. We transact all throughout Florida. Our main focus is the Tri-County area. We do mobile closings as well. Okay. I just had 2 in Tampa, and they went perfectly. I do a lot on the west side,
too. We're always looking for title companies or attorneys, so
yep,
I'll contact you for that.
I'm there. I'm everywhere. We're a bilingual office, so English and Spanish, no problem. And anyone else, I'll get a translator.
I was about to say, there's some other languages down here.
Are you on IG?
I'm on Instagram at Estevez Law Group. You could also find our Facebook page, Estevez Law Group, and our website. We have a pretty good online presence. We even have a chat feature in our website. So if you have a question or you're interested in contacting us, but it's after hours, you could reach out through the chat feature at estevezlawgroup.com, and it'll come to us and we'll reach out to you directly.
Got it.
Money in the bank.
Got it. Make sure you guys reach out if you have any kind of legal questions, especially in Florida. You know, if you're in Florida, Ash, she'll relate you to another one in a different state. If you're in a different state, they have to call my PA lawyer. But if you're in Florida, reach out, because I know, like you said, a lot of people are they're busy investing without the right protection behind them. Right. And I know for myself, with a lot of kids and a wife, it's selfish for me to do that without having no protections and that stuff outlined there. So let's be responsible investors and reach out and get that stuff in order.
Amen.
Yep. And, spend a little bit of money now. It's going to save you a lot of money in the future.
Definitely.
We are out.
Shut up and invest. Hey, thank you once again for listening to Shut Up and Invest. If you guys are motivated at the thought of continuing your real estate journey with us, then visit shutupandinvest.com. There you can join our community and take advantage of more free resources. And don't forget, please like, comment, and subscribe to this podcast so you're first to hear our new content every week. Most importantly, get active and don't forget to shut up and invest.